know that you're hanging in there by a thread, and guess what? Professor Black doesn't have a pair of scissors to cut that thread. I got a freaking blowtorch to cut that thread with. You need everything that you can gather for your white political masters, Macari's sellers. You can't afford to alienate or put off even one black vote. And here you are, pick and shovel, burying Kamala Harris's already doomed to die a boring political future. The only hope that Kamala Harris had was to do some real vigorous rebranding. She was going to have to be out there with an afro, kente cloth, and a Malcolm X banner behind her screaming black all day. That was the only hope that she had. But you got out there attacking black men, you have already alienated 50% of the black vote. And you can't afford to lose any black votes. But then again, you probably already knew that Kamala Harris was a long shot at this. You had nothing to lose. Literally, Kamala Harris's presidency would have been nothing for black people, as she's been nothing for black people, so you had nothing to lose. What a shock it must be for you that all the lies you convince yourself of, or rather that you let your white pals convince you of, all the lies they convince you about how black people were sheep to be led around by the nose, and how Kamala Harris was going to be gobbled up like something good to eat by the black community, all of that's blown up in your face ahead of schedule. It would have been one thing if we got to 2020, to say the summer of 2020, and you were sitting there going, I don't understand why the black community didn't turn out, but the first political primaries, the first political caucuses haven't even occurred yet, and Kamala Harris has already taken on water. She hasn't even begun her campaign yet. She's supposed to be officially beginning in Oakland this Sunday. She hasn't even started the campaign officially, and already she's looking and going, my God, I'm screwed. What a shock it must be that you've shown up to the black community only to find that the new voices of black media already beat you to it. The black community's already made up its minds that we're not going to vote for an anti-black trash bag like Kamala Harris any more than we voted for a sellout, of sellers like you. Because, Macari's sellers is very familiar with voters rejecting a candidate. His own constituency in South Carolina already rejected him, and he knows that history is going to repeat itself. Kamala Harris is not going to the White House any more than you are going to the governor's mansion. Macari's sellers. Though I do thank you for confirming that the new voices of black media, particularly the black men, are changing the discourse of the 2020 election. And it hasn't even started yet. The election hasn't even started. And yet black men are already making their presence felt. And you want to know why it is you've got black women who are falling in lockstep behind us? It's because women will follow men who lead. They're not listening to you, Macari's sellers, because no woman wants a man who wants his woman to lead him. That's the antithesis of a man, but then again, you've never been a man. So these women are looking, and they're seeing a man who stands on his own 2 feet. You want to know why a majority of white women supported Donald Trump, even though he was sexually assaulting white women? It's because at the end of the day, what he showed was being strong and wrong will get you a lot farther than being weak and right. But in your case, Macari's sellers, you're the worst of both worlds. You're weak and wrong. Nobody wants that. The same way that the old black media has been rendered defunct and useless, you're seeing that you're obsolete too. And what are your white masters, your white paymasters going to do with you, Macari's sellers? Now that it's becoming apparent that you can't do the main thing that they chose you to do. They didn't pick you to go to Congress because they thought you were good for black folks. They chose you precisely because they knew you were bad for black people. And here you are removing any and all question about that. The job of hand-picked black bootlicks like Macari's sellers is to show that you can lead the black masses around by the nose. That's your job. That's the job of all the black sellouts who white power picks and gives a little bit of money to and gives a little bit of prominence to. Whether it's Roly-Poly Martin or Macari's sellers. Neither the white media or white government has any use for a black sellout. unless that black sellout proves that they can make us do what white power wants. That's why you're there. The new voices of black media are beginning a substantive counter movement to all that, and it's getting louder. More voices are joining in. The people who are speaking out and making a real presence with young people. These voices speaking against these bootlicks and sellouts are growing, realizing that your support base ain't strong enough. One of the idiots on Kamala Harris's Twitter feed was saying that, oh, she raised $1 million in 24 hours. I think Donald Trump has helped to hopefully put the lie to the idea that the candidate with the most money is going to win the election. If that was the case, then Mitt Romney would have been enjoying his first term. How'd that turn out for him? So no, if you want to brag about a candidate getting $1 million, it don't matter if you can't get 1 million votes. But this is what these guys are doing. They're trying to paint their own reality. They're trying to make themselves feel better about they can get some white dollars. Yeah, but it ain't white dollars that's going to get you to the White House. It's black votes. How many of those are you getting? Oh, yeah, I forgot. Bakari Sellers pointed out, we're hemorrhaging black support. Our momentum is building. Our momentum is rising. People who tried to push the white media line like Bakari sellout, they will inevitably find themselves having to either shut up altogether or to insincerely try to sound a little like us so that they don't completely expose themselves as being totally out of touch. That's where the old black media comes in. These chumps who like to have Hillary Clinton in their studio for breakfast, it might be on nose. Those people, they're going to at first be trying to push the Kamala Harris line. They're going to see if maybe the black community isn't as anti-Kamala Harris as the new voices of black media make us out to be. They're going to be hoping against hope that, well, maybe black folks will, if we just keep saying you got to hold your nose, if we just keep telling people Donald Trump's going to be with black people in the cattle cars any day now, if we just keep doing that, then we can scare black folks to the polls. Yeah, same way you scared us to the polls 2 years ago, right? It'd be like that. So the old black media, they're going to be bringing Kamala Harris in. They're going to be asking her to talk about what rappers she likes. They're going to be trying to help her boost her black cred because she ain't got none. And when that fails, what will happen is they'll start slithering back. They'll start trying to walk back all of their Kamala Harris adulation and infatuation. Yeah, I'm talking about Angela Rye. They're going to be trying to walk some of all that garbage back. And they're going to be starting to say, well, you know, the reason people ain't supporting her, well, I mean, look, I like her and all, but people remember what she did when she was the DA in San Francisco. People remember what she did when she was Attorney General of California. Well, you know, you can't be getting out there refusing to hold the cop to the fire. They're going to be talking like that later, but look at how they're going to be talking right now. Right now, they won't be holding Kamala Harris's feet to the fire. Angela Reed won't be doing it because she's hoping to get a job in the imaginary Kamala Harris administration. She thinks she's going to be the next Omarosa. So they're not going to be talking to black folks and saying, you know what, look at what Kamala Harris did. We need some assurances. We need to bring her in here. One, confront her with her record. She can't explain any of this, so we'll watch as she pathetically tries to explain it away. And secondly, we need this heifer to go on the record that she's not going to repeat this. And how the hell is she going to prove to us that she ain't going to repeat all this? Practice doesn't make perfect, folks. It makes it perfect. A leopard don't change its spots. Kamala Harris has been the anti-black tool of white supremacy for a quarter century now. Too late for her to decide that she's going to find religion at this point. But you're not going to find the old black media talking about that. They're going to be using their last gasp, and make no mistake, trying to prop up this Asian anti-black racist Kamala Harris. This is going to be the last gasp of the old black media. They're going to be proving that they have absolutely no stroke with the black community. They have no influence. And what will happen is their white media paymasters will say, okay, you guys are finally proving that you outlived your usefulness. We don't need you anymore, same way that they didn't need any of them on MSNBC or CNN, got rid of them as soon as Obama was out. So these themselves in the bricks too. Now, by the way, since Kamala Harris loves dancing so much, anybody think that Roly-Poly Martin will get out there and dance with her? I mean, he was cutting a rug with Hillary a few years back. I'm sure he wouldn't mind shaking a leg to Cardi B, right? Just saying. Folks, across the board, from the minions of white supremacy to their black bootlegs to the most prominent voices that the white media has to offer, these clowns are showing that they know that we're here. Make no mistake. Once they realize that Kamala Harris's effort to at least get a few black folks back on the plantation of white supremacy's political fraud of so-called American democracy, once they realize that, okay, this failed to produce any results, what's going to happen is they're going to say, you know what, we're going to come through the middle of these voices of black people. Now they're messing up everything. Messed up everything, the bootlicks, from weed to the Rio to Roly-Poly Martin. We started messing up things for them, and now what's happening is we're making our presence felt in elections. We're making it where the political fraud can't play itself out. Not as effectively as it used to. So now that what's happening is we're translating our online action into offline results. Sooner or later, they gotta come at us. Bakari's Sellers, he's already revealing, tipping his hand, showing exactly what the line is. You think that they don't talk about us around CNN? For God's sake, I get more viewers from my videos than CNN does. What do you think Bakari's Sellout and Anna Navarro talk about whenever they're sitting there drinking triple mocha lattes? What do you think they talk about? What they talk about is how much influence they ain't got. You better believe that they have seen the videos, they've seen the Twitter posting, the Facebook posting, they've seen what the new voice of the black media can do. And they realize they can't do this. Yeah, there is a war on for the black vote. The problem happens to be the black vote is not listening to the old black media because they recognize it as being the surrogates of the white media. And who educated the black media? Who soured so many black voters on turnout for the Democrats? Who is it who's making it so damn difficult for Kamala Harris to get the kind of support she needs? Black folks ought to be lining up for her, ought to be falling all over her. Instead, they're not. And who is it that's dampening her support? We're showing that we can make their job not merely difficult, on a long enough timeline, we can make their job impossible. So no, Kamala Harris, neither you nor any of your suck-ups and psychopaths like Bakari's Sellers are going to palm you off as the African-American woman. Ain't going to happen. Your friends are not going to be able to shame black men into remaining silent while this fraud goes on. What we say here matters. What we do here matters. We're having an impact. We're putting some pain on the bastards. We're upsetting their well-laid plans. We're making it difficult for these guys to operate because we are a constituency that they can't buy off. They cannot buy us off the same way that we prove that they're not going to scare us off. They cannot afford to come to us and give us what we want because what we want is power, and they decide that power cannot be in the hands of black people, specifically not black men. Because black men will use that power in order to empower their people and to ensure that our people don't fade from the earth. We'll put a stop to the systematic oppression of our people. They're seeing that this generation of black men is rising and leading black people in the right direction. They're hearing language that they never heard before. From the streets of Baltimore now to the online havens that they thought they had. They're having questions thrown at them that they never heard before. There's a critical mass of black people, the right black people, not the most black people, but the right number of black people, the ones who are actually going to get things done, like you. Professor Blankenship's voice would not matter a whit if people like you out there were not acting as a force multiplier, taking what's said here and taking it out to the four corners of the nation. You guys are the reason that Bakari's Sellers is fit to be tied. You took his little baby nuts and tied them in a knot, and now Bakari's Sellers is lifting them a few online. Because when he's finding out just how powerless he is, he thought because he was on television, that meant that he was a big man. The white folks told him so. And what he's finding out is, no, not only is he not the big man, he's not a man at all. He's finding that out hard. And he's wondering what's going to be coming. Well, Bakari, no sense in fretting about it because your inevitable fall is inevitable. So there's no reason worrying about it. You can't change it. You ain't man enough to change it. Ever since the new voices of black media have come out against Kamala Harris, we started this a while back. Go through the archives, you'll see the Professor Truth didn't just start when Kamala Harris announced her candidacy. I've been keeping up that strict, steady drumbeat because I will not allow anyone to pull a second Obama fraud on my people. But this woman made no mistake, she's worse than Obama. Kamala Harris is a far worse threat to us than Obama. Oh yeah, she's scared, all right, because what the hell is white power going to need her for if she proves that she cannot mislead black people? I mean, for white power, Kamala Harris would be a dream candidate. She spent 25 years abusing black people, attacking the black community. And if a woman with a track record of nothing but attacking black people, locking black people up, and protecting those who attack us, if that woman can make it to the White House and get the black vote to support her, well, white supremacy, well, that's the wet dream right there. That is the wet dream. Hell, she doesn't even prove that black people will never be free and will challenge white supremacy because they support attacking them for 25 years. He makes it clear we will never support Kamala Harris if the black community dashes Kamala Harris's political fortunes and her political future. Then the white supremacists are going to look and say, wait a minute, the black folks are cleaning house. That's what they fear. Ain't that what Nat Turner said? He said Nat Turner said that, and you also had Denmark BC saying that. You had Jean-Jacques Dessalines saying that. They were saying before we can go after these white supremacists, we got to clean our own house first. We got to clean our ranks first. So we ain't got any Bakari sellouts. Of sellers stabbing us in the back. We got to make sure that we purify our ranks. What that means is all these folks who ain't with us, make sure that they're not with us. Lock the doors, lock these scumbags out. They have no place among us. Because once you have black people who start to make sure that we clean up our own house, then what's going to happen is we're going to be just that much more powerful when it comes time to take on the white supremacists. And that's what white supremacy don't want. They want this systemic institutional dysfunction to continue. And what better way to derange the internal politics of the black community than to send enemies, sellouts, and cowards, and Asian provocateurs among us? That's what Bakari's sellers is. That's what this empty suit Harris has always been. And that's what a lot of these people, like Angela Ree, are proving themselves to be. They're proving themselves to be our enemies. They're proving themselves to be the enemy within. And they're wondering, this fight for the soul of the black community, which is going to be the linchpin, white supremacy hinges on anti-black racism. It also hinges on anti-black dysfunction. Are we prepared to become politically mature? Are we prepared to become serious about what we want? At long last, has there arisen a critical mass of black people who are serious about what we want, who are not going to be misled, no matter how many weasel words they use? We will stick to our guns and stick to our interests. Has that generation finally arisen? That's what white supremacy is afraid of. They need Bakari's sellers, and people like him to head this off. They need to be stopped. Are you going to let that happen? The new voices of black media are starting to dampen the support among black people that Kamala Harris needs. We're making it that much harder for her to misuse us for her political base. And without black people, not only do you stand no chance of becoming president, you won't even become the Democratic candidate. It is crucial that we put the word out on Kamala Harris, that we continue to keep the word out. It is imperative that we keep the pressure on. We are going to make an example of Kamala Harris's candidacy. We're going to make an example out of her that when you cross the black community, when you attack the black community, you will pay. policies against the individual. I apologize to Al Green, and to Chicken, and to Waffles.
You support reparations for black people? Well, listen, again, we had over 200 years of slavery. We had Jim Crow for almost a century. We had legalized discrimination and segregation, and now we have segregation and discrimination that is not legal still exists and is a barrier to progress. We have disparities around housing. We have disparities around education. We have disparities around income. And we have to recognize that everybody did not start out on an equal footing in this country. And in particular, black people have not. And so we have got to recognize that and do something about that and give folks a lift up. That's why, for example, I'm proposing a lift up. Give people who are making $100,000 or less as a family a tax credit, which will benefit and uplift 60% of black families who are in poverty. So by default, it affects black families, but there's not a particular policy for African Americans. But no, if you look at the reality of who will benefit from certain policies, when you take into account that they're not starting at the same place and they're not starting on equal footing, it will directly benefit black children, black families, black homeowners, because the disparities are so significant. So if we focus on the specific issues that have resulted in the greatest disparities, and we understand that that's part of why we're doing it. Listen, the reality also is this: any policy that will benefit black people will benefit all society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No, because whatever benefits that black family will benefit that community and society as a whole in the country. Right?
For all of you Kamala Harris supporting dead enders out there, all two of you, tell me something. Did you get that? Oh, we were just exaggerating when we said that this woman ain't gonna do nothing for black people. Oh, it's not like she ever said that. Why? You guys are taking her words out of context. Well, now that she said it in plain English, I mean, for some of y'all out there, the two brain cell crowd, you know, the folks who apparently listen to the breakfast schlubs religiously, now that you've had her actually say it, to spell it out and come out and just say it in plain English, what? I'm not going to do something just for black people. Now that she's finally said it this early, before she's even had her first presidential debate, do you get it now? Probably not. And you see how pathetically she was trying to dodge around the question. She tried to do the old rhetorical end run around this one. The old, well, this will benefit black people too. Black people are always an afterthought. When it comes to racist discriminatory policies, however, black people are not incidentally affected. We are the only ones targeted by these policies. But notice that she doesn't mention which of these policies she's going to take down. Whenever she talks about all of the ills that we've been subject to, all of the degradation, all of the harm we've been subject to, notice how she never says what she's going to do about it. She never actually addresses the policy specifically. That's because for 25 years, Kamala Harris has been using these very same policies to attack black people. Secondly, her refusal to prioritize exclusively black policies contradicts itself. In one breath, she says, any policy that will benefit black people will benefit all society. Then, in the very next breath, she says, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No. Then she turns right around and says, whatever benefits the black family will benefit that community and society as a whole and the country, right? This woman doesn't know whether she's coming or going. Before I go on, did you catch that part at the end where she asks, right? The desperation in her voice was palpable. She sounded just too pathetic. Ah, that moment when you realize you done messed up. That's what it was. She realized what the hell she had said. Oh my God, I let that slip. And she's sitting here trying to go right to the interviewer, basically asking the interviewer, can you help me out here? No help for the hopeless. Clearly, Kamala Harris was given instructions by her white handlers how to dodge the issue of reparations, and while she was in the cozy confines of the Breakfast Schlub studio, where that group of inbred mouth breathers giggled like schoolgirls for her and treated her talking points as though they were handed down from on high, she figured she had it made. Why, she could play all of the interviewers like that because the Breakfast Schlubs were so accommodating. No doubt Charlemagne the Fraud and DJ Penis and me didn't ask any follow-up questions, but here she is talking to the griot, who can hardly be considered a hostile audience, by the way, and yet the interviewer merely pointed out the most obvious thing of all, that Kamala Harris hadn't promised anything for black people. Harris lost. That's what you saw there. That was a flash of anger on her part. This woman, you can tell that the exposing that we've given to her, the fact that she hasn't been allowed to get away with her lies and she's being held to account for the first time in her life, you can tell that it's getting to her. You can tell that the pressure's getting to her. Look at how she snapped at that interviewer. Look, I'm not going to say I'm going to do something just for black people. No. Okay, yeah, because she's been having these softball questions given to her by a bunch of soft-headed idiots. And now that she finally had someone who merely pointed out, didn't even ask, just pointed out. So you're not doing anything specific for black people then. And that made her snap. You know, I think that she's on the edge already. She's cracking under the strain. And I think that if we keep applying the pressure, why, she'll have one of those classic meltdowns that you only dream about. I mean, I can see her frothing at the mouth, throwing things, cursing. It'll be glorious. She will put Donald Trump to shame. All we have to do is just keep applying the pressure. Because she was reduced to nothing more than a babbling joke, sitting here spewing a bunch of nonsense about how she's not doing anything for black people then, but if it benefits black people, it benefits everyone. She realized how dumb it all sounded, how she was contradicting herself, and in the end she was reduced to asking the interviewer for help. Right? She is giving the white supremacist line, by the way. That whole thing about all boats are going to be lifted with this Lift Act. Give me a break. Crap that she spews normally, we only hear that kind of stupidity from the Republicans, at least openly like that. And the Republicans, usually what they say is, why, there's no need for reparations for black people. There's no need for affirmative action. There's no need for hiring quotas or set-asides for black people. All we need to do is increase the earned income tax credit. Hey, look at how many NBA players there are. There's your reparations right there. All we need to do is give people a minimum wage increase, and that will benefit black people too. Yeah, if we increase the earned income tax credit, everyone benefits from that, and well, black people would benefit from that too. All you have to do is improve things for everyone across the board, and by default, that benefits black people too. A rising tide lifts all boats. All Kamala Harris did was to take that lying, fraudulent political talking point and reverse it. Instead of saying whatever benefits the nation as a whole will benefit black people too, instead she says whatever benefits black people will benefit the nation as a whole. But the operative word for her being whatever, not black. See, Kamala Harris has been a classic conservative her entire life, like Barack Obama. Barack Obama, you can go look at him on YouTube where he says that basically he is a centrist Republican. Yeah, that we pretty much cotton to that one. But Kamala Harris, she's no different, she's no better. And she tries to talk as if somehow she's part of black America. The hell she is. She has almost practically no experiences that are in line with black people. She She has no experiences where she can point to and say that this is typical of the black person in the United States. She was raised by an Indian mother. How many black people have been raised by an Indian mother? How many black people in the United States grew up in Canada? How many black people in the United States had any time in Jamaica whatsoever? How many black people in the United States have gone to Howard or any of the historically black colleges and universities? How many black people, huh? This woman has practically no experiences in line with the majority of black people, and yet she can't understand why everyone keeps questioning her black card. Maybe because the thing looks phony. Maybe that's the reason why. And here she is enforcing policies that are meant to deprive black people at the lowest point we've been in since the end of slavery. Because that's what she's doing. She is boldly telling you, I'm here to enforce the anti-black policy. I am here to do my part to reinforce this racialist pecking order. She's going to generalize the benefits people fought for, but she's going to specify the backlash, specify the consequences, specify the blame when white people get their noses bent out of joint about it. And it's not because she doesn't know that black people have been deliberately and systematically singled out for economic and social attack and economic and social deprivation. She started off by copping to all of that. Oh yeah, let me go ahead and tell you everything that black people have been through. Yeah, I'll go ahead and give you the whole rundown. But that's her game, because she knows that there's some black people out there who, for their own twisted, stupid reasons, will decide to overlook that. Maybe it's because she's a woman. Maybe there's some people out there who think that she went to an HBCU, so that pretty much means something. Not sure what it means, but it means something. Or they're going to find some other reason to try to talk themselves into what they know to be wrong. She says a few clearly insincere things about slavery and Jim Crow, etc. She admits the most obvious fact in the world that black survivors of American slavery have been targeted by specific racist policies. It means nothing for anyone to cop to that. Hell, even the Republicans cop to it. You can't deny it. It's an undeniable fact of historical record. The people who did it bragged about it as recently as the 1980s. So you don't get any points for talking about something that was not even an open secret. It was just out in the open, period. You don't get any points with me for talking about that. But she wants somebody to pat her on the back as if she has moral courage. Right after she lists the litany of crimes against us, she then says, but there's no need to have targeted specific remedies for this group. We have been targeted by specific policies, but you don't need to have a targeted specific remedy, though. We're just going to do something in general for everyone. That would be like the people who sued Ford back in the day for their faulty brakes being told, well, everybody in America is going to get a $100 check from the U.S. Treasury, and well, you guys are included in that too, so there's no need for you to get anything from the Ford Motor Company. Everyone's going to be getting something, so, you're getting something too, so that's pretty much the same thing. Kamala Harris has got to be the most stupid political shill that white supremacy has generated in some time. Normally, only Republicans in the Deep South are this stupid. She's sinking herself, struggling to cover up her statements, but only realizing after the fact that she just dug herself into a deeper hole. Now, it doesn't surprise me at all that she boldly declared that she's not doing anything for black people. That wasn't what got me, because that's precisely what I've been telling you guys about this heifer for years now. What got me was all that crap she was saying at the beginning of the video. Slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, the whole nine. She lays out that all this has been going on with her help all the way to the present. She doesn't mention any Latinos who were enslaved or lynched, I noticed, because, of course, that never happened to them. She doesn't mention any Asians who were caught up in all of that segregation and Jim Crow, because none of them were. Jim Crow was aimed at us, not them. So I don't want to hear anything about any Chinese laborers on the railroads or what have you. You can tell that Kamala Harris's white handlers, the incompetent administrative class for the Democrats, they told her exactly what to say. Kamala Harris has taken orders from this or that political benefactor her entire life, so it never occurred to her to think, and as she showed in this interview, she doesn't know how. You know that she's already been instructed by Chuck and Nancy on what she better say and what she better not say. Remember that leaked DNC memo that leaked where the Democratic national leadership got caught telling the Democratic politicians and their staff members that when it comes to Black Lives Matters, quote, do not offer support for concrete policy positions. Well, of course, that was redundant because this was merely a memo repeating what the Democrats' position regarding black people has been for over 100 years now. This is standard operating procedure. What they're saying is, continue with policy as usual, no support for concrete policy positions, just tell black folks we feel your pain. This is the well that Kamala Harris is drawing from, because in that same Democratic memo, which had been told they wanted to keep it confidential, the Democrats admitted, they listed for you, that they know exactly what it is that black people want them to do, and that they're opposed to it. The Democrats oppose doing what black people are saying. We as black people are asserting ourselves, and the left-wing white supremacist black overseers, the preachers, the civil rights retreads, the black talking heads on TV, and the black clowns on the radio, they totally failed to control us. That's part of the reason why Kamala Harris is getting so blustered. That's part of the reason why she showed that flash of anger, why she's getting so dang frustrated. Because of the fact that it wasn't supposed to be like this. White power put all sorts of internal control mechanisms in the black community, and they've been supporting and feeding these control mechanisms ever since the plantations. This has been going on well before the Emancipation Proclamation. This has been going on since 1609. Making sure, in fact, before that, because that's how the Europeans got their hooks in Africa in the first place. You had some Negroes over there, and you see some of their modern-day descendants all around us. These clowns were the ones who decided they were going to make common cause with the enemy. It's a matter of, well, as long as you don't enslave us, it'll be all right. Yeah, how'd that work out? And by the way, speaking of the white media's failures, you know we have to mention the breakfast schlubs.
The 2020 fight is getting very real. Democrats jumping in, speaking out, and some of the media stops on this presidential campaign trail are expected and traditional. That is the usual way that candidates come out in this early season. A staple for candidates for years is going and talking on television. But there is a very new stop that is undeniably right now important in this 2020 race. And if you haven't heard of it, here you go.
A lot of black people feel like they don't trust you because you mispronounced Beyonce's name. Have you learned to say it correctly yet?
How are you going to stand with African American people?
Are you a 2020 presidential candidate?
I am.
Why? Why did you do that to yourself?
We have seen American values under attack. We have seen the American dream under attack.
You've been looking at the Breakfast Club, and joining me for the first time ever, all three hosts of Charlemagne.
Yes.
Why are these 2020 candidates who aren't even getting through all the news stops yet coming to talk to the three of you?
Democrats like to talk to black and brown people, and I think that they know that every black and brown person isn't necessarily saying this year, hey, we're voting Democrat just because we've been loyal to the Democratic Party for a long time. And a lot of people feel like we've been loyal to them for a long time for no reason. So I think they're ensuring that they get the black and brown vote.
So you're saying your power in 2020 is because of your audience?
100%. They're not coming to talk to us three. Just because, it's only because of our large audience.
You guys are very direct often in your questioning, even different than some traditional news questioning. Let's look at this exchange with Kamala Harris on, quote, blackness.
What do you say to people questioning the legitimacy of your blackness?
I think they don't understand who black people are. Because if you do, if you walked on Hampton's campus, or Howard's campus, or Morehouse, or Spelman, or Fisk, you would have a much better appreciation for the diaspora, for the diversity, for the beauty in the diversity of who we are as black people. So I'm not going to spend my time trying to educate people about who black people are.
Right answer?
Yeah, and you know what? The edge, the beauty about that question is that only I could ask that question. Only a black person could ask that question. Like, she couldn't go on this show or Colbert or Good Morning America. A white person couldn't ask that question there.
We're going to ask them about what their agenda is for black people. Absolutely.
Whatever you said is correct, though. Like, yo, we want an agenda for black people. It seems like all of these other groups are always being represented. They have agendas for all these other groups. But when it comes to African Americans, everybody gets so quiet. Like, a rising tide lifts all boats. It's about all Americans. No. What are you specifically going to do for African Americans?
Do you think it's a risk for candidates to come on the show the way they are?
I think that we're going to look at what they've done in the past and hold them accountable for things that they have or haven't done. But I think it could be beneficial if they're prepared for it. I think a lot of politics are very polished and they give generic answers because they know what questions are typically asked. But when you have a conversation and they're not used to it, that's when you really get the candid answers.
Now, did you hear what Charlemagne the Fraud was saying, ain't it cute to see this Joker trying to talk tough, trying to sound like us? These scumbags, they know who it is who has the pulse now, and it's not them. Oh, these guys supposed to be so hood, right? Except it ain't the hood that has the pulse of the black street. It's whoever speaks best to our interests. That's who has the pulse of the black street. It ain't the breakfast schlubs. All they're concerned about is being able to yuck it up with their corny jokes that always fall flat, and they're calling themselves hobnobbing with celebrities and such. That just certifies that they ain't about nothing. Well, we're entering an age of substance now. The situation's getting real, so some people are starting to lose their taste for all of that coonery and buffoonery. The breakfast schlubs are looking to go, our grip on the black community is kind of slipping. Yeah, that's because your act has gotten old. That whole shucking and jiving routine, it's worn thin. Especially when people have real voices they can listen to. Yeah, we haven't gutted you of your audience yet, but you can see the way the trend is going, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to hit it off. Well, we're going to start talking like these guys are. Too late now. These guys have spent so long shucking and jiving, people know that they're full of it. Hell, to hear these guys trying to talk black first all of a sudden, it doesn't even sound right coming from them. You can't be the jokers who are making all sorts of crotch jokes and making all sorts of corny one-liners about rappers beefing, and then all of a sudden you talking about, oh, these politicians, as a black community, we can't be having people doing that whole rising tide lifts all boats thing. That doesn't even sound right coming out of their mouths. It sounds phony because it is phony. Charlemagne the Fraud, DJ Penis Envy, and Angela Rye with pickles on the side. But these jokers, they're not fooling anybody. So here they are trying to reinvent themselves as being serious commentators on politics. You gotta have an IQ higher than your shoe size before you try this one on, kids. Charlemagne and the rest of that traveling sideshow of the damned, they're part of the problem. They are white media's front Negroes who white power marches out to mislead and deceive us. And for a while, they were running the boards. But now there's different voices out there. What a surprise. We're taking the wind out of their sails. Yeah, they see where the trend is going, and they understand that where we're going, they can't follow. Because we don't carry any dead weight. Charlemagne was trying to appropriate our language. We're not going to let the politicians get away with telling the black community a rising tide lifts all boats. No, we're not going to let them get away with it. Charlemagne let Kamala Harris pull that crap right in front of him. He sat right there while she was telling everyone that she didn't have a specific agenda for black people. She didn't have any policies. He didn't ask one follow-up question, didn't even comment on it, no nothing. He just let her sit there and say, nah, ain't doing nothing. She mouthed some rising tide lifts all boats garbage. He's sitting there just nodding as if it was holy writ. Oh, but this is the same joker who was trying to tell Ari Melber, though, it's time out for that. That stuff's in the past, though. Give me a break. Do you see how Kamala Harris and Charlemagne the Fraud and the rest of white supremacy's puppets, they all act the same. They contradict themselves from one sentence to the next. All of these clowns come out of the exact same toilet. The same ideological septic tank. Politicians have perfected the art of talking a lot, not saying a damn thing. But the main reason that they can do that is because they don't ever talk to the public. The white media is the fourth estate. That means the fourth branch of government. But what goes unsaid is that the white media is in fact a creation of the white government, or as I like to call them, the administrative arm of white supremacy. And through the white media's massive financial resources, the result of our ancestors' labor and suffering, they've been able to finance entire constellations of so-called news outlets. And these phony news outlets have been the primary means, in fact, until the last few years, the only means that the public has had to find out the alleged issues of the day, who the political whores are running for office, and what they claim to be about. But the public has been prohibited from ever asking questions of these people. There's been no cross-examinations allowed. There's been no vetting of the candidates by the public. They go to some venue, and what they'll do is they'll give their same old canned stump speech. But they're not taking many questions. And if you try to give them any questions, what happens is the people in the audience, many of them are not well-versed on politics or well-versed enough on rhetoric to be asking any questions. The politicians make sure that any sort of gathering, any sort of khaki clash, any sort of town hall that they do, They already have their own supporters and people who they know are friendly toward them, who are going to be the main ones asking the questions. You'll be lucky if they even look in your direction. Hell, you'll be lucky if they even let you in. All that stuff is stage managed, okay? But the most egregious examples of stage managed interaction is on television. Now, if you're somebody who gets your political news from the white media, that's like trying to have a phone call with someone when your receiver is broken. You can hear the other person, but you can't say anything back to them. And this is supposed to be what passes for a political discourse under white supremacy? This is not a one-sided conversation going on here. It's not a conversation at all. It's a monologue with the public doing all the listening. And that's the way they want it. They set it up like that. That's exactly how they want it to be. Shows, and they are shows indeed, side shows like Meet the Press or Hardball, they're not there to ask politicians tough questions. It's just basically a game of gotcha. If they did ask tough questions, the kind of stuff that politicians don't want to talk about, then no politician would ever go on their show. If these guys were really dangerous to political power, no politician would dare go near them. It's all political theater. The biggest issues, the biggest national threat to the country is the leveling of the economic playing field for black Americans who came out of slavery. Those of us who trace our ancestry to slavery, we happen to be the biggest national security threat to this country because once you topple the racist pyramid scheme that is the United States, you have basically changed everything. Nuclear weapons, that's a minor issue compared to the racialist pecking order. Now, people seem to confuse having a plethora of white media shows on television with meaning that you're also getting a plethora of opinions and viewpoints, and you're not. Just because there's 15 different so-called news shows talking about politics in the run of a day, that doesn't mean you're getting 15 different viewpoints. And it's not even a matter of the old, well, there's only 3 companies that put out the 15 to 25 shows that deal with news that you watch. It's worse than that. The individuals who happen to host these shows, the people who are behind the scenes, the producers and executives, these people are all the same. Heck, Jeff Zucker was screwing things up over at NBC before he jumped to CNN. The cross-pollination between these guys is incestuous. There's a reason for that, because all of these guys went to school together. They live in the same neighborhoods. They're part of the same, they went to the same universities, part of the same social clubs, same churches, and in many cases they're married to, if not related to one another. That's the reason why these guys are able to bounce from one company to the next so seamlessly. Hell, these guys have been doing that their whole freaking lives. And this is who you're getting your news from. This is who wants to tell you that they're giving you all the news that's been to print. That you're not well informed until you've listened to them. It doesn't matter if it's Joe Scarborough with Mika the Bigot Brzezinski, or if it's Joy Reid. They're all on MSNBC. The white media is one massive safe space for their political liars. Anything presented to you by the white media has been carefully constructed and controlled so as to make sure that you and I are on the outside looking in. And they do that for a reason. It's done that way on purpose. This is how the politicians go every election cycle, repeating the same old empty rhetoric and platitudes, and like clockwork, they continue to slither their way back into office with practically no opposition. That's how they keep the revolving door going, by making sure that you're only a spectator, you're only able to watch, you're not able to actually influence anything. The public has been conditioned to put up with this because the white media has shut the public out. And they also make sure that they make politics into entertainment. Okay, you're not able to affect the system, but isn't it just so entertaining watching the politicians, the political scandals and the back and forth? It's like professional wrestling. They're trying to take each other down. They make sure to fill it with lots of sturm and drang, lots of noise. A cute little light show to distract you from the fact that you're getting screwed, and that the way that the system is currently configured, the way that the white media has conditioned you to wait until election day to think that that's your time to have your say, that makes sure that things never change. The politicians know full well that it would be political suicide for them to go on any unapproved media outlets, like the new Voices of Black Media. Look at what Kamala Harris tried. She tried to use the word reparations as a red herring to deceive us, and she thought she'd get away with it, but when she was asked what reparations meant, she was forced to admit that, well, it doesn't mean anything for black people if I have anything to say about it. And the same thing goes for Elizabeth Warren and Alexandria Cortez. They use the word reparations, and then they immediately have to show, oh, this is just a deception that we're trying to pull. Even the so-called town halls these politicians go on, they're filled with carefully selected shills and stooges, only approved of members of the public, usually pre-vetted campaign aides and other non-threatening types, people who have been on a part of this or that political party for a while, people who are known elements. To ask questions, which themselves are pre-vetted, by the way. If you tell the folks in those town halls that you want to ask the wrong type of question, you're going to get passed over. So don't kid yourself. These town halls, they're as fake as a $3 bill. I told you all about that town hall trick in my video essay, Why Roger Ailes Isn't Going Away. Roger Ailes would set up town halls for Richard Nixon during his presidential campaign in '68. And Ailes would front-load the audience with Republicans and white media, radio, and TV folks, people who know the game and would play along with it, you know, like Charlemagne the Fraud, and DJ Penis Envy, and Angela Rye. See how that game works? The public would think that the people in the gallery were randomly chosen, or they were just people of the public who came in, but Roger Ailes knew the truth. The audience was every bit as much the cast, and you might as well have had the RNC chairman out there, because it basically amounted to the same thing. This means that a politician can go their entire political career without ever once having to actually talk to the voters or ever actually being questioned by the voters, which is what they truly fear. They could go 30 or 40 years like that. All they got to do is make sure that they stick to the carefully planned venues. And you wonder why it is that whenever you catch them out in public, they're making sure that they don't talk to you. And if you catch them in their rhetoric, like Kamala Harris got caught, you go ahead and point out, hey, I see what you just tried to pull. Then all of a sudden they'll go, well, it's not like that at all. Oh, look, I go. They understand exactly what it is they're doing. It's a con game. Never once do they have to be pinned down on anything, at least not on anything that matters. And this is what they call a free press. A press that is wholly owned, it's just a wholly owned subsidiary of official white power. You got a compliant media who are their friends and associates, or in the case of Angela Rye and Roly-Poly Martin, a bunch of psychopathic suck-ups, desperately hoping for a job with the very politicians, the very political con men who they're talking to. This is supposed to be who we listen to? Well, no wonder that they don't ask them anything that might threaten them or displease them. This is somebody who they want to be able to call boss later on. If you want the black people who are actually about something, the ones who actually swing elections, then we are the only game in town. Charlemagne sounds like a pure fool. Well, he sounds like a fool under any circumstances. But when he tries to pretend that his audience actually matters to elections, he makes himself sound like a complete moron. Have you seen who it is who are regular listeners to the Breakfast Schlubs? Have you seen who it is who actually likes that side show that they put on in the mornings? The Breakfast Schlubs told everyone who and what their audience was during that disgraceful interview with Kamala Harris. The Breakfast Schlubs audience are the pot-smoking, Cardi B listening, couch-surfing, worthless bottom feeders. In other words, the irrelevant portion of the black community. And if you're catering to the irrelevant segment of the black population, that means you're irrelevant too. And yes, we need to be honest here. The irrelevant portion of the black community, the ones who are never going to make a contribution to black empowerment in any shape, form, or fashion, they are the majority of the black population, I'm sad to say. But I am glad to say that without white supremacy to sustain them, these clowns are going to go away, because you and I, we damn sure ain't going to be propping them up. We're not going to be sustaining them. We're trying to find ways to build walls to keep them out too. So as black empowerment begins to solidify, as we begin to aggregate our resources and aggregate our numbers and aggregate our focus and will, part of the agenda is going to be to make sure that all of these scumbags and all of these clowns and all of these good-for-nothings who we've had hanging on our shoulders like an albatross, around our neck like a millstone that we've been dragging for the last 150 years, it's time to finally cut ties with them too. And don't give me any garbage about, but what about numbers? We've just shown you with Kamala Harris what we can do when you have the right numbers. It ain't about having the biggest army. Hell, if that was the case, Alexander the Greek, he would never have defeated the Persians. It's about having the best army, not the biggest. Besides, we only need people who are going to get things done. Everybody else is dead weight. They wouldn't help us anyway. Fully 50% of the black population in the U.S., and yes, we are talking about, when I say 50% of us, we're talking about specifically those of us who are survivors of slavery, are irrelevant to black empowerment. And in large part, that 50% are opposed to it. Now look, we've already clarified that all the white media's approved of Negroes are our enemies. We've also clarified that the bougie so-called black organizations, which are merely mulatto front groups, they're also our enemies too. You just saw Mark Boreal, the moron, running his mouth to give you proof of that one. But we will not truly be serious about black empowerment until we've taken the hard line against the biggest internal enemy that we have. And that's fully 50% of the black people who came out of slavery, who either wanted to go back to the plantations or they wanted to destroy those of us who dared to want an identity away from massa. And we need to be honest about that. At least 50% of us who came off the plantations, it was because they didn't have a choice. Massa wouldn't let them stay anymore. Not if he had to pay him, he wouldn't. They've been trying to figure out how to slither their way to the plantations ever since. Somebody needs to take care of me. Nah, it's time for us to purify the ranks. It's past time for us to do that. We're going to have to purge these backward, treasonous elements from among us. We're going to have to cast them out. That's why we need a code of conduct and why it has to be furiously enforced. But we cannot allow everyone to define or to have a say in what the code is going to be. The code can only be formulated by the doers, because only the doers understand what it is that we need. Only the doers can be allowed to speak on this. Those who want to see black people back in the driver's seat, and not on some R. Kelly, I need me some rims, and I need me some big booty hoes, and I need to be the big man on the block. No, it ain't about that. True power is not about trying to get attention. True power is about making sure that you and your progeny have your position solidified for the next 1,000 years. Only a select handful of black people have the right mindset for that. So we're going to have to be very selective as to who gets to have a say in what the code is. Because the truth of the matter is, we're going to have that recalcitrant, useless 50% trying to write all sorts of exceptions and grandfather clauses for themselves. Forget that. The code is real simple. Those who are actually serious about black empowerment prosper, everyone else gets left behind. It's going to be survival of the fittest. It should be. Only the strong will survive, and only the very strongest are going to be calling the shots. Because for too long, we've been allowing a whole bunch of tap-dancing, butter biscuit chasing idiots to be calling the shots. And these guys are the weakest and dumbest among us, because too many of us have an aversion to intelligence. I told you about that way back with we're all Detroiters now. Too many black people fear and resent knowledge. And too many black people want to speak and don't have the foggiest freaking clue what they're talking about. It's time for them to go. It's time for us to purge ourselves of them. And a lot of these fools came out of these historically black colleges and universities. We need to be honest about that. You got a bunch of clowns in the hood who don't have a clue, and you got a bunch of idiots who came out of these universities who are equally ignorant, equally destructive to us. We got to have zero tolerance for that. The code is going to be the code. Those who can keep up will be fine. Everyone else gets left behind. We need to have that kind of purge go on. We need to have a thinning of the herd. Otherwise, we're going to continue to have what we've had for the last 150 years. And that's a three-ring circus, because we keep allowing every thought, bootlick, buck-dead rising code, mammy, sellout, and professional white ass kisser to have an equal say in what goes on in our community. We don't treat our community like it's precious. We treat it like it's a freaking whorehouse. Everybody just gets to run on in. These good-for-nothing Negroes will never amount to anything, and they've only been looking for someone who they can leech off of. Well, it's time to cut these parasites off. They ask white power to feed them, and when that runs out, they're coming to you and me and demanding that we feed them. And this goes for the breakfast schlubs, too. They are a classic example of this kind of parasite. They are a white media surrogate, a white media front group, trying to talk like they're from the hood because low-information Negroes will go for that. So it shouldn't surprise you that the white media is suddenly giving airtime to the chumps who, until recently, were literally relegated to a media ghetto where only black people would ever see them or hear the stupidity that they spout. But white media has to go this route. They're terrified to engage with us directly, so their only recourse is to try to find some of their paid bootlicks into, well, can we get you to talk like these guys over here who we're really scared of, and we'll see if we can pretend as if you're the ones who are pushing this, and who knows, maybe some people will be gullible enough to think that you are, and you'll kind of talk black empowerment like, but not too much. Don't go too far. We don't want to scare the white viewers away. But you go ahead and talk a little bit like that, and we'll go ahead and tell everybody why that position is wrong, and people will see that, yeah, this is a bunch of hooey, these black empowerment types. They don't know what they're talking about, so we'll go ahead and put on this little bit of political theater, and yeah, it'll fool some people. How's that working out, huh? Of course, these black radio personalities who couldn't get the white TV stations to return their phone calls up until now are all of a sudden getting guest spots on white media TV. Of course, the white media is talking about them because they know that it's safe to talk about Charlemagne the Fraud. He's one of your boys. Emphasis on the boy part. When it comes time to talk about this real stuff over here with the new voices of black media, they are terrified. They don't dare mention this. As far as they're concerned, this is the beginning of their end. And they're right. So don't let anybody tell you that you have no choice but to show up on election day. Now, we can't allow Donald Trump to... I had some idiot who was in my Twitter feed. I tend to have a lot of these morons coming out as we get closer and closer to the beginning of formal election season, when they feel like we got to start trying to establish who the front runner is now. I've noticed we got these clowns who are come sniffing around my YouTube channel or come around my Twitter feed, and here they are saying, oh no, too many people have died for us to have the right to vote. Yeah, a lot of them died because people like Kamala Harris refused to prosecute the folks killing our ancestors. That's why so many of them died. Oh, I got to go out on election day. If you're talking about going out for local races, that's cool. Nobody says don't vote for local races. But when it comes to the national races, forget it. You don't have a dog in that fight. And you're a damn fool, and you're a traitor trying to convince other black people that we do. We do not. I'm going to let you in on a little secret about elections. This is for the slowwits out there who either showed up just today to my channel or who don't pay very good attention. And for those who don't pay very good attention, I really don't want you here. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret about elections, and it's something that democracies have been aware of ever since ancient Greece. And it's something that you're not going to be taught in civics classes. And it's something that political science doesn't talk about much either. And it's not because it's too complex or that it's not very important, so no one talks about it because it ain't that important. On the contrary, this little-known secret that I'm going to let you in on, it's big, simple, and it's the most important fact about elections. Here it is. The ballot box is the least important point of the political process. There is an entire chain of events that takes place from people who have some sort of policy that they want to see enjoined on the society all the way to election night, or election day, however you choose to see it. There's a whole bunch of steps in between the people who have a policy they want and successfully getting a candidate into office. In fact, go beyond that to the point of having a law that gets passed. There's an entire process there. Part of it happens to be candidates who announce that they're running for office, and people who do fundraising, and then election day itself. All of those are steps, but when you get to the ballot box, that is actually the least important step of the political process. Elections are supposed to be all about the public influencing policy, but nobody tells you that by the time you've gotten to the ballot box, it's too late for you to have an impact on the political policy. That's what nobody tells you. That's something that they don't tell you about elections. The public is encouraged that you just show up on election day and you go ahead and choose from this pre-canned slate of candidates. Don't go asking for anybody different. Oh, you have all these choices so long as you don't choose anything else. Elections are all about choice, just as long as you choose from one of the two choices in front of you. How is that any different than Soviet Russia? Oh, in Soviet Russia, one political party. In the United States, you only got one of two choices, and they both say and do the exact same thing. That's a distinction without a difference, folks. What's the difference between a dictatorship and a duopoly? The dictatorship is honest. That's the difference. But you need to understand that you have been conditioned and indoctrinated to not even get involved in the political process, to think that you're not supposed to get involved in the political process until election day. And tragically, 99% of the time, this is the point at which the public comes into the process, at the point where they can have no impact on policy whatsoever. You didn't choose the political candidates. They were selected by a bunch of rich oligarchs who hide in the shadows. And sure, you can reject one or two of their puppets at the ballot box from time to time, but all that doesn't mean anything, because they're just going to choose another shill to trot out for the next election. If you're going to call yourself actually trying to weaponize the ballot box, then you might want to understand how pluralistic elections work. This is why voting is a pointless exercise 99% of the time. The time for the public to be having their say is before the election cycle even begins. I mean before the 2-year point. That's usually what the white media's condition you to think. Oh, the election cycle begins in 2019. January 2019 is when it starts, 2 years before the election. No, you're supposed to be, actually, truth be told, you're supposed to be thinking about it all the time, even on election day, even the day after the election. You know that you don't have the policies that you need. Why the hell do you think that it's time to take a siesta on the day after the election? I can tell you right now, the Koch brothers don't take a break. I can tell you right now, Sheldon Adelson and the rest of the Israeli lobby, they ain't taking no breaks. So why the hell are you? This is the point at which the public is supposed to be choosing candidates before the election, before what the white media tells you is the election cycle. For them, they've set it up pretty much to basically be a way of telling you, well, you shouldn't even be thinking about elections until after the Democrats and Republicans are prepared to declare their candidacy. Well, why the hell shouldn't I be talking about that beforehand? Before the Democrats get to show up with all this noise, before the Republicans show up with all of their chatter. Why shouldn't I be able to have my say? Isn't a democracy supposed to be about the public having their say and not having two corrupt parties who are nothing more than two wings of the same white supremacist con game dictating terms to us? But you're not going to get that kind of talk from the white media, because the white media is the fourth branch of government. They are the fourth branch of this white supremacist con job. Apathy is in large part to blame for the fact that people sit on their hands or that they go along with the okie doke, but that's only part of the issue. The white media encourages you to be passive bystanders because they shut you out. And they make it clear that unless a candidate came from either of the two major parties, that they're not a serious candidate. You let some third party come in, somebody who actually shows they got a chance of gaining office or at least of influence in the vote, the white media will immediately savage them and say, well, this person's controversial, they're not to be taken seriously, they're not well versed enough about the issues. Yeah, because Donald Trump, he was just a freaking paragon of erudition now, wasn't he? This man was just so well informed now, wasn't he? The white media doesn't profile nor publicize outsiders, either politically or socially. They don't give exposure to the new voices because the white media, are the mouthpiece of official power. And official power looks to crush all other voices, starting with yours. Understand something. You have been indoctrinated so as to be politically backward. Now, part of it is probably your own apathy, but a large part of it falls on the white media having conditioned and miseducated you to be politically backward. So that instead of you looking at the end of the process as being the beginning, you need to start looking at the beginning of the process, the real beginning of the process. You sit back and wait to see what hand-picked political whores the Democrats and Republicans are bringing out to you, and you try to figure out which one is the least repulsive or which one is the most personable, and that's who you vote for. Well, the entire point of propaganda is to get people to stop thinking. And the fastest way to do that is to get people scared. This is why you see them ratcheting up the scare tactics on Trump. They tried that in 2016, by the way. Trump is the boogeyman. Trump is the devil. He's a racist. Well, that is true. And so is Hillary Clinton, so why the hell should I vote for her? Because she's the lesser of two evils. That's what the white media says. That's what their black flunkies say. Well, you gotta vote for somebody. You gotta vote for somebody. Says who? I ain't gotta vote for either damn one of them. As Kwame Ture said, good people don't choose evil. And he was right. And look at how effective we've been merely by making it clear that a significant portion of the electorate is deliberately withdrawing from the process because we don't recognize the legitimacy or the acceptability of any of these guys. What they understand is, oh, these people are not just giving up say on voting. They're looking and going, the process is fundamentally wrong, and they're not becoming apolitical. Where none of us are saying, oh, well, I guess that means that we're done. We're looking and going, no, we're going to be seeking solutions outside of these political whores we're being presented with. And that's what the white media is scared of. That's what a lot of these Negroes online are scared of. They like the idea of voting because, well, that's an approved of act. White power doesn't punish you for voting. But when you start saying, you know what, we're still going to be politically engaged, but we're tired of that whole ballot box thing because we recognize it for the fraud that it is, the fraud that it's been to us. They're looking at going, if you're not looking at the ballot box, what are you looking at? We're looking for solutions that don't require us to take part in a political con. What does that mean? Don't worry about it. Whatever it means is inevitable. So why fret over it? See, Negroes like the idea of voting because it's safe. White massa will let you do that. When you start saying, you know what? We see this con game, and we're still looking for solutions, but we're not looking for solutions that involve us going along with white power's little political charade. Well, that means you have to get off your couch and do something. You have to get off your butt and do something. Yeah, it might cut into your TV time. So a lot of Negroes don't like that. Oh, you talking about us actually putting in some work? I don't know about all that. Well, in that case, then I don't know why the hell you're even here. And you won't be here if that's the kind of person you are. When people are scared, they stop thinking. But worse than that, when people are scared, they're much more likely to obey whoever tells them to do something, whether it's some guy holding a whip or some chump standing off to the side trying to fool you into doing something for him. And this is what the white media and their black flunkies are up to now. They've been up to it for the last few years. Okay, so Donald Trump is president. All you people out there were terrified of Trump being president. And we had to vote for Hillary because Trump is so evil. Tell me something. Have the mass roundups of black people started yet? Has President Trump put together the concentration camps and started locking Negroes up en masse? See, white supremacy's already got you confined to concentration camps already. They're called the hood. You call it the hood, they call it the ghetto. It's the same damn thing. You're already corralled, stupid. They already got you locked up. They already got you hemmed in. You're sitting here talking about Donald Trump as if he's going to do something that you haven't already been enduring. That speaks to your stupidity. What it shows is just how brain dead a lot of us have become. You have no idea that you've been on a plantation the entire time. I guess you figured that because Massa didn't show up every day and say, y'all niggas pick my cotton, that apparently there was some difference, and there's not. The way that American society is structured, the way that we are attacked and abused, the way that we are excoriated and demonized and denigrated, our very humanity is constantly being assaulted and assailed. This is no different than what was going on in the plantations. It's a distinction without a difference. Oh, I guess you figured that because Massa tells you, I ain't providing no slave quarters now, you gonna have to call yourself Cleopas. I guess you figured that means it's different, and it's not. A lot of black people are just scared for no reason at all at this point. These are the broken Negroes. These Negroes tell you, we gotta vote because Donald Trump. These are the broken Negroes talking. And we are never never going to put an end to white supremacy, and we are never going to usher in the glorious golden age of black empowerment until we decide that we're not going to be motivated by fear. We can only be motivated by power. So all you scared Negroes, get the hell away from me. You're not going to take us anywhere. All of your nightmare scenarios that you were envisioning, none of them has come to pass yet because you've been living it the whole damn time, stupid. That's why I keep telling you, it matters who it is you get your information from. It matters who it is you listen to. Because if you guys are going along with Hillary Clinton, if Hillary had actually become president, a lot of you clowns would have gone right back to sleep again, hit the snooze button, and Hillary would have been letting the cops be killing folks left, right, and center, and none of y'all would have said boo, because you would have been like, well, I'm sure Hillary doing something. Well, how do you know she's doing something? Well, Roland Martin said, well, Press Secretary Roland Martin said that she was. And she did an interview with the Breakfast Slubs, and she told them that she feels our pain. Well, what about the new crime bill that she just passed? Well, you see, there were some preachers who wanted her to do that. There's no place for fear, and there's no place for stupidity, and too many black people like to indulge both. See, the white powers that be, they hate what it is that we're doing here. When I say we, that means you and I. It's not just me. I'm just the guy behind the mic. You're the reason why these guys are quaking in their boots. They hate what it is that you're doing. Let me be honest here. They hate the fact that you guys have decided to break with the programming, that you guys have decided that you're going to invalidate candidates that you don't like. In other words, you're actually taking part in the process. That's what they hate. You're influencing the process. You're deciding, well, if we don't like you, we'll make it where you can't be a candidate. Ain't that what's supposed to be what democracy is? Isn't that what democracy is supposed to be? It's supposed to be the people looking and going, we are trying to forward and promote and solidify our interests. Here's a woman who has fought against our interests her entire life. She boldly tells us, I'm not doing a damn thing for you. Well, in that case, then you can't become president. And the white media and their black flunkies hate it. They hate it because, as Dr. John Henry Clark said, this country, the white supremacist system, could not survive a single hour if democracy actually existed here. What they're seeing is the stress fractures in the base of white supremacy's racialist pyramid. We are that foundation that everyone's been sitting on our shoulders. And they're seeing some stress fractures forming. Yeah, that's because we're starting to move. We're starting to crack that foundation that they had us trapped in. We're threatening to break loose, and when we do, well, what's going to be propping up all these other groups who have previously been standing on our shoulders? Nothing. That means they fall to the bottom. So white power literally go, we got to get these niggers off of this. We got to distract them. We got to tell them that it's the Russians. They see that the public is no longer looking at the Democrats, the black public anyway, not looking at the Democrats as anything other than a political whorehouse. And they see the black community despises the Republicans, so ain't but one place for us to go. The things that this government does, they don't reflect the public's will, not even the white public to a large degree. So far, the public's been content to sit back and complain, but what if there was a group of people out there, the right people, the ones who tend to get off their butts and get things done, what if they decided that they were going to get off their butts and do something about the problem? See, they can't keep you from the polls. And it doesn't matter because now you've declared that elections are irrelevant because the system is totally corrupted. When the public turns its back on the ballot box, well, revolution becomes the only alternative. White supremacy is what brought us to this point. Now, you may be ignorant of how these things work, but I can tell you right now, white power is not ignorant of it at all. The guys at the FBI, the CIA, they've been fomenting revolutions for the longest time. Part of fomenting revolutions is making where people look and say, oh, that ballot box, that ain't going to solve our problem. Our problem, these guys, the system is totally captured by all these corrupt elements. The ballot box is useless. That's what they've been doing around the world. First thing you got to do is make it where the people look and say that the government is illegitimate. What do you think they're doing in Venezuela right now? What do you think it is that they did in the Middle East with the so-called Arab Spring? That's standard operating procedure. You have to destroy the legitimacy of the standing government. And at that point, now the people are ready to say, let's overthrow the government. And that's what they're scared is going to happen. And as black people decide that we're going to withdraw from this political fraud, then other groups are going to look and say, well, you know what? Maybe we don't like those niggers too much, but you know, they are onto something. They're scared that it can become habit forming, and that if we're the ones setting the tone for that kind of action, they're looking and going, this can become a very big problem very quickly. The institutionalized corruption that is this white supremacist nation has grown to the point that it's totally taken over the body politic. The U.S. is a cancer now, and we are merely the oncologists pointing and saying, look at this rot. White power needs you, black man and black woman, to vote. They didn't bring you into the process because they thought you were going to change anything. As Mark Twain said, if voting changed anything, they'd have made it illegal. The only reason that they brought you into the process was because by the very fact that you are voting the way that they want you to, waiting until election day, the fact that you keep doing that, when you vote, that is an action that confirms that you are validating the system as it stands. Voting is not merely voting for a candidate, you're voting for a political system, for a political, social, economic status quo. You may be dissatisfied with the status quo, but what it means is you're going to depend on the people who created the economic and political and social problems to solve them. You're still following the con. It reassures them that you're still on board with the con. You're not going to be seeking any solutions of your own. You're going to trust that these guys will do the right thing at some point. I want to condition you to see the institutions of this white supremacist nation the way that your enemy does. And you need to see it the way that he does because he's the one in charge. You damn sure aren't. And you need to be honest about that fact. You can't defeat your enemy unless you know your enemy. So it is crucial that you be able to crawl inside of his dank, decrepit, feculent little head and figure out what the hell's going on in there. That's the reason why we've been so effective. Because we've been able to figure out what our enemy was going to do before he did it. We weren't just whistling Dixie. That's the reason why we've had the results that we've been able to have. We know how our enemy thinks. We know how he sees the system that he set up and our place in it. And you need to understand that. You don't have the system, he does. You're only part, you happen to be in a small portion of it. You're just playing out a predetermined role, and it's time for you to get off the treadmill. Because when you look at the whole electoral process, the process of elections, you understand that elections do serve a societal purpose, but not the one that white supremacy told you that it serves. If elections meant anything, then why the hell is it that every time you look up, Congress is passing laws that favor the 1% and ignore the other 99%? Thought it was supposed to be one man, one vote. It's the money that does the talking. They just ignore what you say and go on about their business as if you had said nothing, because in truth, you hadn't said anything. Every time you vote, what you are doing is you're saying, okay, we're going to let you guys stay in charge, and we're not going to do anything about how you're screwing us over. We're going to hope that if we just keep going to this ballot box and keep voting for you guys, that maybe things will change. And what you're telling them is, okay, business as usual. These guys, they're still not going to do anything. The con is on. Under these circumstances, the ballot represents nothing more than a declaration of submission to white supremacy. At least at the national level it does. National elections are a fraud. You didn't choose any of these people. They refuse to allow you to question them. And when you tell them that they're not acceptable, they refuse to drop out of the political race. In fact, they attack you. And the white media attacks you too. The white media doesn't look and go, hey, very interesting. These people are saying that Kamala Harris is completely unacceptable. We need to go talk to them and ask them why that is. This is democracy. Now, instead they look and say, there's a problem here. We got some malcontents trying to disqualify one of the most eminently qualified people who's ever run for office. Kamala Harris boldly told you that she literally isn't going to do a damn thing for you. And then she tells you, vote for me anyway. That's part of the reason why Barack Obama is all salty these days. You see him bashing young black males. Even after he left office, he's still doing that mess. And he's doing it with even more fervor now because he realizes that we were the ones who invalidated him. We were the ones who thwarted his pathetic dreams of cementing his place in history. We made it where, the postscript to Barack Obama's presidency is, and black folks could not stand this guy. He demanded that we vote for Hillary so-called first black president. See, Barack Obama needed to be able to successfully hand the presidency to a fellow Democrat so that he could do what no president since Reagan had done, and that was hold the White House for more than 2 terms. But he failed spectacularly. Barack Obama was a mountain climber. That's what he did. Basically, the man spent his time looking for the next mountain to climb. He wanted to get into Harvard. He did. He wanted to be the first non-white head of the Harvard Law Review. He got that too. The first non-white editor of the Harvard Law Review. He got that. He wanted to be the first non-white senator from Illinois. He got that. He wanted to be the first non-white president. He got that. The guy's always been looking for mountains to climb. Well, now he's all out of mountains to climb. And what he's showing everybody is that all he can do is sit around and fume. But the main thing that he wanted, for him, it's a matter of it's got to be all or nothing. He's got to mark off all the check marks on his bucket list. He wants to make sure he doesn't miss anything. And to him, his presidency was not going to be complete unless he could successfully hand the presidency over to a Democrat so that he could be able to say, see, that economic crash in 2008, the one that I didn't punish any of those Wall Street crooks for, I let all of them walk. Well, I want you to know, I fixed that problem. See, the country was on the brink of collapse. The country was about to fall apart. And I came in on my white horse, and I was wearing a white suit because I love white folks, and I made sure to fix that problem. I kept the country from falling off a cliff. And Osama bin Laden got him too. And, the Little Limbetter Act signed that too, and Blue Lives Matters, because we need more cops to shoot more black folks. We need to reinforce that idea that the cops can do no wrong. And, the country loved me so much, it's indisputable how dominant I was as president. The people loved me so much, why all I had to do was snap my fingers and say, Hillary Clinton needs to be president. The country was tripping over their shoelaces. They couldn't wait to vote for her because I said to do it. That's how popular I was. That's what he wanted to be able to say. He needed to be able to say that. He needed to be able to say, look at how I was just the greatest president since Ronald Reagan. Reagan was so dominant, he handed over the presidency to a fellow Republican, and I did it for a fellow Democrat. See, I'm the greatest who's ever done it. He needed that, and only the black community could give it to him, which also meant that only the black community could deny it to him. And we did. We denied it to him. And that eats him alive. You better believe he grinds his buck teeth every freaking day about that. Him and Michelle. They're just so salty about the fact that this is going to be the thing that people remember about him last. He was begging folks to vote for Hillary, begging like a dog. And the black community said, nope. Well, why not? Because of you, dumbass. He knows that. Every time he deals with the black community, he knows that the black community has written that postscript. He knows that. The only ones who are going to defend his legacy, such as it is, the only one who will defend his presidency is going to be the black community. White Democrats damn sure ain't going to do it. And the black communities let him know, nah, as far as we're concerned, we prefer to forget about you. The black vote didn't turn out in 2016, and while the white media put a pretty face on it at first, as time has gone by, it's become irrefutably clear that the black vote's refusal to turn out was a protest vote against Barack Obama. And he's angry about that. And Obama's not alone. His fellow white supremacist bootlicks, like the old black media, we've also relegated them to obscurity, and they're salty about that too. That's the reason why Angela Rye, with pickles and mayo on the side, that's the reason why she can sit here cursing at the black community, cursing at black folks. She's showing you what she really thinks of black people. And Roly-Poly Martin, he's sitting here so much, he curses more than an NWA album at this point. He curses more than a gangster rapper with the unedited lyrics. That's what Roly-Poly's been reduced to. These guys are just nutting up. But their words are now as profane as their ideology and their standpoints have always been. And look at how they're cracking up in record time. They've never been acting like this before. But all it took was for the black community, the real black community that they're not part of, to speak up, put our foot down, and just throw a little bit of our weight around. And look at these bastards run. Look what they have turned into. They've tried all the tricks to fool black people into investing in the Democratic Party, which actually means they've been trying to trick us to going back to investing in a system that's never worked for us. And they simply can't understand why all of a sudden their powers of persuasion no longer work. And this is why you see the Democrats suddenly talking about reparations, but only because they think that they can mislead us on the issue. Earlier today, Kamala Harris did an interview with The Weed, and in it she said that she thinks Donald Trump is a racist. Well, first of all, this is a meaningless observation. And secondly, she doesn't say what she's going to do about his racism, so why the hell she even bring it up? It was nothing on top of nothing. She thinks that name-calling Trump is going to make black people suddenly decide that we want her as president. And all of those ex-slaves out there who said she ain't one of us, that if she just calls Trump racist, somehow that's going to win our confidence. We're going to go, oh, well, Kamala, all you had to do was say Trump was a racist. That's all we really cared about. All of these asinine, over-the-top, attention-whoring stunts that she keeps pulling accomplishes nothing for her, but this is all she's got. She's already told you she's not going to do anything for you, so empty gestures is what she's been reduced to. She's hoping that calling Trump names is going to make us stop caring about tangibles, and it won't. This kind of man-bites-dog exhibitionism, that may get Kamala Harris some headlines for a few hours, but it's not going to get her any votes. Kamala Harris is trying to win the news cycle, not win an election. Hillary Clinton won plenty of news cycles, both in 2008 and 2016. How many presidential terms has she had, by the way? Please remind me. Lyndon Johnson tried to govern by opinion polls, and that didn't work either. And don't let anyone tell you that Kamala Harris is struggling to find her message. That's one of the stupid talking points being passed around. She's struggling to find her message. No, she has found her message, and that's the entire problem. Her message is, I'm the second coming of Barack Obama, and I'm not doing anything for black people, and you ought to vote for me. She figured that it worked for Obama, it was going to work for her too. She's such a pathetic student of history. Obama's election wasn't the Democrats' second chance to solidify the black vote. It was their last chance, and they blew it. And all the fear-mongering about Donald Trump isn't going to change that. And as one of the people who helped to go ahead and upset these white supremacist little apple cart, I am only too amused to see how flustered these scumbags are. You see, what's confusing Kamala Harris is the same thing that's confused the white media. How did this sudden tsunami of black demands sneak up on us like this? And who was it who was able to solidify all this? Where the hell did this come from? We took down Kamala Harris so fast that neither she nor the white media knew what hit them. Hell, their heads are still spinning. We hit the bastards so hard, they thought the Russians did it. Nobody saw us coming. For so long, black has been a political non-entity. We've been a non-issue, but here we are. We know that it's taken over a decade to be able to get to this point. We know that it took over a decade to be able to aggregate the people, to organize the voices, to focus our effort. We know that it took over a decade, but these guys, they ain't been necessarily looking at us like that. Sure, they've been scared, but they've also been in denial. And they're still in denial now. The fact that they're trying to say that Vladimir Putin's behind all this, the Russians and his bots, what they're really saying is, these new voices of black media that we've been so scared of for so long, these guys who we prayed would go away, not only have they not gone away, they're more powerful than they've ever been. And now they are reaching out to the real world, and they are affecting the outcome of presidential elections, and these guys have no resources. My God, what's going to happen when they do get some real resources? We're going to run the tables, way that we always have. And they know that. They hear us and they fear us. And what's going on is they crapped a brick when they saw what we did to Kamala Harris. Because they know that if this is what we did with 0 pennies, if this is what we did with no ads on radio or television, if this is what we did with no internet banners, if this is what we did with no political action, what the hell are we going to do when we put together just a thin skeleton of an institution to flex our muscles? They don't have an answer for this. That's what the hell scares them. We didn't need white political money. We didn't need George Soros in order to fund us. We didn't need the Koch brothers to bankroll us. We didn't need some white think tank. We didn't need a Robert Mercer or a Sheldon Adelson. No white money involved here, which also means white people cannot influence this movement. They have no means to be able to say, hey, you better do what we say, or we'll pull back the checkbook. We'll lock you out of your offices if you don't. You want to get paid this week, don't you? They have no means to influence us, which means that they cannot coerce us, which means they can't control us. And that's what scares them. We are free to go on a rampage, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're going to go on a freaking rampage against white supremacy. We're going to be the new marauders, ripping them a brand new rear end. White supremacy is a con, but it's one that rests on a very fragile and very precarious foundation. This is why, as Neely Fuller said, white supremacy must control both sides of the discussion. They have to. It's why they lose their minds when they see more than 3 black people, particularly black men, together talking for any reason. They know how fragile their position is, and they live in mortal terror of the day that we figure out how fragile their position is and decide to knock them over. They've been watching us for over a decade now, and they see that we didn't go away. We didn't shrink in power either. We're stronger now, more influential than we've ever been. We're stronger than the white media's black surrogates. We're stronger than the weed, stronger than ebony, stronger than the breakfast schlubs. We're stronger than Barack Obama. We didn't have to change our message to sound more like these white media surrogates. They had to change their message to sound more like us. Yeah, the tail's wagging the dog as they see it. We know what the reality is. The dog is for the first time in a long time wagging its own tail and shaking all of these fleas off. Yeah, they can go ahead and hope that they can run into the loving arms of the white media on cable. And, well, we need you to give us a segment so that more people will see us. The only people seeing you are the white folks who are fine with white supremacy being in charge. The black folks who are actually giving you all this hell, they're not the ones watching MSNBC or CNN. And if they're watching it, they're not going to be acting on it. You're not influencing anything. It's useless, but this is all they know how to do. This is the only tool that they've got. This is about influence, and influence is like a snowball rolling downhill. It starts small at first, nobody even notices, but given some time, it becomes bigger and more powerful until eventually it shakes the earth and starts crushing cars. The white media's entire mission is to shape reality so as to fit the agenda of established white power. More than that, their mission is to make reality out of whole cloth. They tell people that something exists when it doesn't, and then they sit back and laugh while the people act as if the figment of the white media's imagination was real. People act as if this thing that doesn't exist, as if it's really there. And they're like, well, we know it's not there, but these people, they act like it is. Man, we can give substance to things that don't even exist. Our word alone creates reality, or at least it's been going on so long, they've convinced themselves that they got those kind of powers. When you've got the public acting and reacting to something that isn't even there, that's when you know that you're in charge. But just like that, we pulled the plug on their power. They told black people that Trump was a monster, and you gotta go out and vote. You gotta vote Democrat. You have to escape Trump before he gets you. This is your only chance to escape being annihilated. Trump is coming for you. You gotta do this or you're dead. And black people didn't move. Then they tried to gin up the old fear machine again in 2018, just a few months ago, and still we didn't move. Then they saw that, wait a minute, we did get up and move, but it was to move against their hand-picked puppet, Kamala Harris. They were like, man, it's not that the black community has become apathetic, it's that the black community is becoming focused. Now they're seeing all the stuff that was previously only being spoken on camera in Ferguson and Baltimore when the white media got run out because too much of the wrong talk was reaching the masses. masses. Now they're seeing this stuff being said online, and now they're seeing major party candidates having to say it, and it's a matter of whatever deflections and dodges that they're pulling, they understand we are now aware of the power that we've always had, and now we are determined to use it. They did not make us, so they cannot break us. They don't have the power to pull our card like they did with Tiger Woods. We don't depend on white power for our livelihood, and they can't give us the R. Kelly treatment either. So, white power, robbed of their ability to gin up a quickie prosecution or a quickie smear campaign, what is it that they're doing? Name calling. That's all they can do. They're hiding their heads in the sand, and they're trying to wish us away, and it's not working. And since we're not going away, now what they're thinking, their Hail Mary is, we're going to try to hijack what these guys are doing. We're going to say, okay, we're going to try some verbal and political judo, some verbal and political taekwondo. You know, in taekwondo, you use your enemy's momentum against him. When he starts going in a certain direction, you let him so that you can throw him off balance because his own momentum becomes his enemy. That's what they're trying to do with us right now with reparations. They're like, okay, we can't stop this from coming to the fore. We can't stop this from coming to the surface. So let's see if we can use the momentum against them. We'll say reparations. Yeah, reparations. That's right. People need to be paid for the way that they've been wronged. No, the descendants of slaves in America need to be paid for how we've been wronged. Yes, that's right. Everyone should be compensated for how this country's wronged them. No, those of us who came out of slavery should be compensated. Well, the starting point shouldn't be 1865. It should actually be the New Deal. They've been trying that. And as far as they're concerned, well, they're going to see whether or not they can get away with it. Here's the thing, even if they actually were to try it and to decide to bestow upon them, to give themselves permission to ignore our concerns, it would make our concerns go away. And they know that. They're not going to get us off of this issue. And even if they decide that they're going to try some fake, this is reparations in name only stunt, it's not going to fool us, and we're going to call them on it. The only thing that they've got is the main weapon they've always had, and that's the massive presence of their white media monopoly. People tend to remember whatever it is that they've heard the most, but this is where things get difficult for the white media. Because you guys, the ones who are causing them all this heartburn, you're not listening to them. No, let me rephrase that. You may be watching the white media, but you're no longer acting on anything that they tell you to do. Black people are listening to someone, however, and it's not the white media, and even that wouldn't necessarily bother them so much, except that not only are you guys listening to other voices, but you're acting on what it is these other voices say. That's the real problem. White supremacy is obsessed with controlling black people's actions. And you are no longer showing that you can be so easily controlled. And it's no accident that the Pew Research Center did their poll asking black people what news sources that they're most likely to get up and do something in response to. And the Pew Research Center found that it was online news sources that black people were most likely to get off their dumps and respond to. And go back in the archives, you can find the video where I talked about that. But if you look at the date of that Pew Research poll, you find that it was from February 24th until March 1st, 2016. Folks, that was just 3 years ago, and that's important because that was primary season. It was the 2016 primaries. The beginning of the primaries when the Pew Research Center was trying to figure out these new voices of black media. Are black people actually listening to them? Yep, not just listening, but acting on what they say. So I would imagine that the refusal of black people to go for the Donald Trump scare con, that happened to be not necessarily a surprise to the white people who really want to be informed. The white people who get their information from real research organizations, they pretty much had a heads up. They may not have liked it, certainly they didn't like it, but it didn't come as a surprise to them. Pew Research was telling them black folks are listening to these new voices online, and they're acting on these voices too. That's what's going on here. That's the threat that you represent. That's the power that you've got, not even with real resources in your hands, but we're going to change that equation too. Black people are the poorest people in America. If anything, you would expect that we would get every last morsel of our news and information from television. Well, the black baby boomers do, but Generation X and the millennials, we migrated to the internet a long time ago. This is where the black people who matter get their news and views from. And white media is scared because we're not looking for them to do anything as far as informing our sensibilities go. The new voices of black media, we don't work for white power. We work for you. So they're going to see if they can reach out to these other non-black groups and do the old unholy alliance ploy against us. They're going to try to circle the wagons and tell these non-black groups that they have